And welcome to the Druck Report. John Druckenmiller of HometownHeadlines.com and the Hometown Podcast Network with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we're coming to you nearly live, we'll say almost live, from the studios of Brand Red Studios on 4 Bale Street. Todd La Berge once again making us all sound perfect. But as always, we have guests who make us sound intelligent because they are, we're not. And for a podcast record appearance, City Commissioner Wendy Davis, good afternoon.
Woohoo! The champ.
You have moved ahead of that Cochran guys. Let him know you are now in the lead. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm delighted to be here. Always enjoy talking with you, Druck. Thanks for this opportunity.
No, glad to have you here. You and Craig McDaniel were here last time. You all did a fantastic job on that. We appreciate that. Today, Wendy, we're going to talk about one of your many love people who are you know this term in baseball, what a five-tool player. By all means, you are there, not only an avid baseball fan, but also many skills in many areas, among them being politics. We are in one of the most critical weeks of the election year right now. Earlier today and now through March 20th, we'll have advanced voting going on around Floyd County, a couple different spots, but that's underway for the presidential preference primary. We have qualifying underway today through noon Friday for local Democrats and Republicans to run for all federal and local offices as well. All that's going on. We are watching some major shifts in the Democratic, candidates. We have seen a couple of dropouts over the weekend. In fact, it's kind of inspired this little episode here. Last week, you were over in South Carolina witnessing the debate among the Democratic candidates. Wendy, from what you saw last week to what we're doing this on a Monday afternoon, it has changed dramatically.
It has.
Let's start with that. Let's go back. Here it is, folks. Wendy's texting and posting away from South Carolina, and it's driving yours truly nuts because we haven't quite figured out yet how to do a true radio cast, which is coming, by the way. I'm working on that, and we're working on that. But here you are. I'm like, oh, man, if I had the radio show, you'd be on tomorrow morning and tell us all what happened here. Well, we're getting to that point. We won't deal with that. Let's deal with this. You are here. You watched a historic debate last Tuesday in South Carolina, and Joe Biden, almost 50% of the vote on Saturday in the South Carolina Democratic primary there. So let's go back to last week. Let's go back to Saturday, and let's talk about the repercussions of that. Number one, what did you see? Did you sense? Of course, it's always easy to ask this question. Did you sense the Biden rush coming out of that debate?
I to be very candid, I did. I did not anticipate that it would be by such a wide margin, but that certainly the crowd in the audience at that debate were Biden people.
Wow.
And it was to be honest with you, I was like, whoa, it's not what I expected, right? Like all the punditry was like, Biden's on the way out. This is going to seal the coffin for him. If he doesn't perform in South Carolina, then it's going to be who takes his lane, right? And he did better in South Carolina. You know, the polling had closed to some polls had a 3% lead. Some people had him at a 5% lead. I figured he'd probably get high 30s, low 40s. I did not anticipate in any way that he would do as well as he did, at almost getting more than 50%. Most of the night he was over 50% as the returns were coming in. And it was, 30 points higher than his closest competitor. And it's about the history and the connection Vice President Biden has, particularly in the African-American community.
That's my next question here. I mean, that's to know that the African-American community came out so strong for Biden. That's what chased Pete out, I'm sure. I mean, you know that part of the component of that demographic pretty much is now reserved.
Well, it's still not a closed contest. We're still not down to two folks, right? But it's a lot more narrow than it was a week ago. And a week ago, we had, frankly, a lot of panic among sort of the DNC crowd that I'm a part of, right? Like, so today I'm wearing the Wendy Democratic activist, Democratic National Committee. That's the hat I'm wearing today rather than the city commissioner hat, right? This is about the partisan politics. That's my volunteer work.
So you said the important word there too, volunteer.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not getting these six-figure paychecks from this?
Oh, Soros apparently doesn't have my address.
Yeah.
So
I understand
all
that. Well,
the activation he's paying for. Now, don't get me wrong. My actual job, producing telephone town hall events, I do get paid for.
Sure.
But most of my party work, the work that most people see me doing, representing the party, is all volunteer work.
Well, good for you.
I did not pay $1,700 to attend the debate.
I saw that post, by the way. Thank you very
yes.
much. And more social media trash out there.
Yeah. So, but there were a lot of people there who are just activists like myself, right? DNC members, and then also local activists, local party members, right? The campaigns all got tickets that they got to distribute however they wanted to distribute. And of course, the Congressional Black Caucus was one of the co-sponsors of the event. Mr. Clyburn, Congressman Clyburn, is a strong leader in that organization, and they were well represented in attendees. That was sort of the VIP section, right? So,
well, they had a heck of an impact, big impact on the campaign. And Wendy, you taught me how to pronounce this gentleman's name a year ago on radio, and you know what? I still can't do it. Mayor Pete
Buttigieg.
Thank you, Buttigieg.
So there's two ways. Not that it matters anymore.
Yeah,
really.
That's the next question.
Edge, like the edge of a counter, right? Or Buddha Judge, which I think is the fun way to pronounce it. That's the way Shasta does it. Buddha Judge. Yeah.
Well, no matter what, Pete met with the Carters yesterday. Yeah. And that was made a lot of buzz on the the social media and on regular traditional media. And then last night, 8:30, Pete says, "I'm done, folks. Thank you. It was great fun."
Right. And he went to Selma yesterday, and Tom Steyer went to Selma yesterday. They had planned to do that. Steyer dropped out after the South Carolina results, which he invested a lot of money in South Carolina, and came in a strong third that surprised a lot of people. But he had said all along, if he didn't see a path to the nomination, he'd get out. And so he sort of made his stand. Could go out with his head held high that he did well in South Carolina for being an unknown. In a similar way, I think Mayor Pete realized that he could help unclutter the race some by getting out yesterday. There are people who've speculated that President Carter helped him get that clarity of mind.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know. I just think, wow, what an amazing day to be mayor of a mid-sized Midwestern city and get to meet in the morning with President and Mrs. Carter, and then go and be with John Lewis in Selma for the celebration, and then be able to say, worked hard, had a lot of people supporting me, millions of people supporting me, made history, but it's not my year.
Well, and I saw some stuff last night about what history did it make. Well, number one, here's a gentleman who is married to another gentleman, a little bit different, and even in the 21st century here, and also a mayor of a smaller city commanding a national audience here. I mean, that is historic.
Yeah, well, and he won the Iowa caucuses.
That's a good point.
Right, and so, I mean, he had a top 4 finish in the first 4 contests, and so there's a lot to be impressed with, again, coming from nowhere.
Yep.
And building a very strong grassroots support system. So, but now on to Super Tuesday.
Well, that's, of course, thank you. Very good segue there. And I'll preface this. I'll poison these waters here. Wendy, after tomorrow, those of us who have not voted yet, who may be voting Democrat or whatever, what are we going to vote for after Tuesday? I mean, is this thing going to be over tomorrow?
No, it won't be over tomorrow.
Okay. There it is, folks. The official word I've been waiting for. The
official word. It is not over tomorrow. So keep in mind what these candidates are chasing, besides fundraising needs to keep the campaign moving forward, right?
Sure.
They're trying to secure pledged delegates for the convention in Milwaukee. The magic number is 1991. So 1,991 is the number for you to get the majority, which is 50% plus 1 of the pledged delegates to be the nominee on the first round. So I think after tomorrow, somebody was asking me today who they should vote for, what my thoughts were, because she wanted to vote tomorrow. And I said, maybe you don't want to vote tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to wait a little bit. Yeah,
maybe you want to wait till Wednesday or later in the week and see if other folks drop out, or sort of what the fallout is. I anticipate that you will have Biden and Sanders be 1-2 in a lot of states. The interesting thing will be if anybody ends up a 2-3. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. That's not one of them that's consistent. So it could be Senator Warren. It could be former Mayor Bloomberg, right? Like, so it's I couldn't tell you. Anybody who wants to say they know what it's going to be, they don't know what it's going to be.
Well, if you look at it's funny, the sample ballot and people who are going to to a vote advance here in Floyd County today or now through the 20th, you're going to see 12 names on the Democratic ballot.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was 11, but.
Is it 11? I thought it was 12.
At one point.
As journalists, we kind of,
No, I mean, at one point, as a state party executive committee member, I had to be the one who officially said this is what the party wants on the ballot.
Gotcha.
And there was like a Friday afternoon or a Monday afternoon where we had to have that decision made, and somebody dropped out that morning. So we were able to slice it off again. So, but since that list, a couple other people have dropped off, including Tom Steyer and Mayor Pete this weekend.
So we got that. Really, I think the last I saw this morning, we're down to 6.
It's 6.
Is that right? Okay,
it's
6 active out there.
And 6 of them right now. I expect by the time we get to our voting on March 24th, it may still be 4, maybe 5, maybe 3. I don't think we'll be just to 2. But I've been wrong before.
Well, this is my other pet peeve, and I ranted about this morning on the radio edition. Looking at this, so we're voting. Georgia's voting on March 24th. We're doing advanced voting now, and if we're lucky, we'll see maybe 50% of the total who's going to vote in the presidential preference primary in Georgia vote between now and the 20th, and then 24th is the 7A, 7P. Go to your tweet machines, that kind of stuff, and all. Why isn't Georgia involved in what our governor did several years ago, organized in 2016, the SEC primary? We're kind of behind the game this year.
Well, that was not the Democratic Party's decision. That was that was Secretary of State's decision, I'm sure, in consultation with the new governor. And they waited and took their sweet time deciding when it would be. And I think they didn't have any worries about when it would be on their side because they knew it wouldn't be competitive on their side. So they were trying to just spin their wheels, it seemed, and make this decision. They would say they picked that Tuesday, so we would be alone and important, and we'll see whichever candidates are left.
We're non-consequential. We have no seat at this party. I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean...
Well, we will. I think we'll still have an importance. I think it will not be between 6 candidates at that point. But I'm very confident that Georgia is going to matter, not just in the primary, but in November.
Well, that's the part I'm worried about. I mean, especially in the primary part, but November as well.
Oh, November, we matter. The road to the White House
I'd love to see what's happening.
Comes through Georgia. You will see investments like you've never seen
I love it.
in Georgia before, particularly because we have the 2 U.S. Senate races.
It is going to be, and that's great. I love to see Georgia so prominent there. I just hate us not having a fuller voice, shall we say, especially, and I think Brian Kemp did a good job 4 years ago in setting up that whole SEC, as he called SEC primary. I just don't like seeing us having a backseat.
Well, I think if they looked at Super Tuesday, which is what we're calling tomorrow, right, and said if we're going up against California, Florida, and Texas, we won't matter. So, I mean, I don't think it was foolish to not jump into the Super Tuesday pool. 14 states that are all pretty big states and American Samoa.
We're number what now? Number 9, number 10 in the country? Georgia?
Size-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, we can play the big boys.
Yeah, but
maybe not in football, but sorry, a little Gator joke there for you listeners out there. Gators have been a joke last
So anyway, regardless of whether we thought it was a good idea or not, them's the rules. So.
Well, unfortunately. And the other one that gets me about this, and I'm in trouble for this one already, but I'll get in trouble again. The decision by the Georgia Republican Party to not have any other candidates on the list, on the GOP side, other than the incumbent president, which I know has been done before with, I think, during the younger Bush. You look at it, I know it's been done in other states as well, and you kind of say, wait a minute. Number one, God forbid, what if something happened to the man's health? Number two, we still vote.
Well, Sam, as here's my favorite line. I'm a Democrat with a little d.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I'm a Democrat with a big D. I'm not a big fan of elections that aren't real elections.
That's exactly what this is.
So I guess we're better. The Georgia GOP is better than some states that literally canceled it. Here, they just didn't let the guys who were also running on the ballot, which I think is...
it's un-American.
I think it's short-sighted on their part.
Yeah, to me, it's un-American. Give me we vote, we fight the vote to have a choice. And if we either vote for our guy, the incumbent, or you don't get a vote. Well, who decides that?
Well, so the interesting thing in Alabama, right, they're part of Super Tuesday tomorrow. So not only do they have their presidential preference, but they also have their regular primary.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're put together. So you have people who are not happy that they don't have a choice in the Republican presidential and genuinely would like to go pick among the Democratic options. But if they pick up a Democratic ballot because they want to vote in the presidential preference there, they miss voting in the Republican primary for their local races, and almost all their local races are decided in that primary still. So,
gee, how does that make the Democratic Party feel?
Well, like we have work to do.
That is Wendy Davis. We're talking about politics. We're talking a little about presidential primaries coming up here. We are voting again in advance now through the 20th of this month, 8 to 5 at the Yellow Brick Courthouse. Other locations. It's kind of confusing. It's all we have on the website for you.
Here's what we're going to do, Wendy. If you need it. Yep.
No, let's take a quick break here and come back, and let's talk about part 2 of this, and that is qualifying underway today as well. We're seeing all the candidates come forward. A lot have already gone in, raised their hands, signed the forms. We'll come back and talk more next about the next primary. Keep in mind, and this is very confusing. We have the presidential preference primary we're voting on now through the 20th. Then, of course, Election Day is May 24th. We get all that taken care of, and then we have the local and state primary coming up on May 19th. We'll talk more about that with Wendy after this break, including qualifying for those posts. This is the Hometown Podcast Network.
I'm Ryan Simmons, Creative Director at Brand Red. We're honored to sponsor today's episode. If you're looking to grow your business, we help companies just like yours reach new customers. Contact us by visiting our website at brandredstudios.com or emailing us at info@brandredstudios.com.
Welcome back to the Druck Report. John Druckenmiller with you from Hometown Headlines and also from the Hometown Podcast Network. Once again, we are coming to you nearly live from the studios of Brand Red Studios for Bale Street. Todd La Berge once again working the numbers, making us sound good, and always our reigning queen of podcast guests, Wendy Davis, who, yes, although city commissioner, is really here more for her side as a member of the Democratic National Committee and also of the Georgia Democratic Party as well. Wendy, we just talked about the primaries, the presidential candidates, the changes there, the South Carolina primary, Super Tuesday, all that good stuff. Let's talk about this being the week where we're seeing all the candidates qualify now through noon on Friday. That'll set the ballot for our next primary, which is going to be May 19th. By the way, voting, I believe, starts on that. I think April 27th for advanced voting. Anyway, we got people qualifying, Wendy. We got things going on here. It's a kind of a two-part thing here. And by the way, I think the Democratic local party, Florida Democratic Party, will have a meet and greet with the Democratic candidates, I believe, Thursday night, 7 p.m.
Yes.
Over at Division Street.
Division Street Gym. Yep.
Good. So we'll be talking about some of those folks here, I guess, as well. All right, Wendy, we have people who are lining up today to sign the little documents, pay some money here as required by various governments here to run for school boards and county commissions and state representatives and U.S. representatives. So where are we at? Well, not really with all the sign up here. We're really just like 4 hours into this thing as we record this today. But this is the next phase. This is the candidate qualifying thing. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
So the sheriff's race, which has been going on for 3 years.
It was a dominant election in 2018. People don't understand
It's actually on the cusp of happening. That primary is May 19th. And there are 3 people anticipated as Republicans running for that. I don't think the Democrats have pulled a sheriff's candidate out of our hat yet, but we have till Friday at noon. So if we don't, that race will be determined May 19th. So
Tom Holt's not going to run?
Don't give away all my secrets.
Sorry. Okay. Holt will be texting me tonight.
No. So there are 2 county commission seats, right? And that's something that sort of confuses people. They're not quite sure the difference between city commissioners and county commissioners, right? So there are 5 county commissioners. And the way it is set up is that 2 of those county commissioners have to live inside the city of Rome, and the other 3 have to live outside of the city of Rome. And so this year there's 1 of each. So 1 city county commission seat and then 1 county commission seat is up. On the school board, and everybody, that's just about where the candidate lives.
Yep.
All duly registered voters get to vote for both of those county commission seats countywide. Okay. So what's a little more confusing is the county school board, right? Because we have a separate city school board. So none of the city voters get to vote in that county school board race. So first of all, you take sort of the hole out of the donut. The
Yep.
folks in the donut hole don't get to vote for that, understandably. So you have to live outside the city of Rome to run for county school board, and the 3 in their district where you have to live, again, the whole rest of the donut votes, but the candidates have to live. For District 2, you have to live in the Model Johnson School District. For District 3, it would be the Coosa School District. And for District 5, it's the Cave Spring McHenry School District. So again, you have to live there, but you run in the entire donut, right? So City of Rome voters don't get to do that one. So the races people don't often think about that are also on the ballot this year, Clerk of the Superior Court. And we already know there's going to be both a primary on the Republican side, and we have a Democratic challenger.
We do?
Mariah Medina. Yeah, she announced last week. And then the tax commissioner seat is up. And the coroner, which I always am just like baffled of why we elect the coroner and why it's nothing like what you see on TV.
Yeah.
And the district attorney, of course, is also up this year. So the local races, minus the district attorney, the other races I was talking about, they qualify with the local parties because those are all partisan races. So I think the Republicans might be doing their qualifying at Dave Golden Shoe's office. Mm-hmm. We're doing our qualifying at Jeremy Salter's office.
Just down the street here.
242 North Fifth Avenue. Regular business hours, Monday through Thursday, and then Friday at noon. Qualifying is cut off for everyone. Also, all the state legislative races are up. Mm-hmm. We have 3 state house seats that have pieces of Floyd County in them. And, of course, the 13th it's just Floyd County, and then a state Senate seat, and then the U.S. congressional seat. And, again, that's going to be a humdinger, as they say, on the Republican side.
Will you be at that meeting tomorrow?
Which meeting tomorrow?
Tomorrow. I asked that, not trying to be sarcastic here. The Floyd County Republican women meet tomorrow at noon, and I think 5 of the 9 candidates are going to be there for that. And it's open to everybody, of course. I know it's a GOP meeting, that kind of good stuff and all, but boy, I tell you what, it's I'm trying to think whether that's going to be the most crowded meeting this week or the whole thing they're doing with the planning department about the UMU voting here in the River District. Which one of those 2 meetings? They got 75 properties going before that meeting on Thursday. I'm like, okay, which is going to be the biggest draw here? Like I said this morning, I think when you have a restaurant that sells some pretty good biscuits and you got some pretty hot election going on, I wonder if tomorrow's meeting won't be prime time this week.
Well, I hope y'all enjoy it. It's not one I was invited to. I know the public is invited.
The public's invited?
But I'm going to let the Republicans sort out who their nominee is, and we already have one candidate.
Very gracious of you.
We already have one candidate on the Democratic side. Yep. He's from up in Dalton. Kevin Van Ostal, I think is how he pronounces his name. And again, if folks want to come meet some of our local candidates, Thursday night at 7, we'll have a candidate meet and greet. So we are anticipating having candidates for more offices. I'm just not at liberty to share those names
that's good.
At this time. But it's important. This is the week for people that have to put their money where their mouth is, right? Like, it's not a lot of money. It's usually 3% of the salary. And the interesting twist, and I think this might be a surprise to you, this is the first time I'm going to say this publicly, but qualifying down in Atlanta this week, I'm going to qualify to be one of the 16 Democratic electors. So
okay. So tell me about that.
In November, you don't actually vote for the Democratic nominee or the Republican presidential and vice presidential nominees. You vote for a slate of 16 electors. And so there are 16 people who will be on the Democratic side and 16 people who will be on the Republican side. And I am really quite honored that I was one of the 16 people that the state party selected to represent Georgia. So,
but who votes on that?
If the Democratic nominee wins Georgia, then I literally get to go be the Electoral College voters representing Georgia.
Okay. Gotcha. I get you. So y'all are predetermined. So it all depends on who wins in November.
So actually you're voting for the 16 of us or the 16 of them.
Gotcha.
Right? Like you're not voting for the president. You're voting for that slate of electors.
Why 16 in Georgia? We have 14.
Because 14 members of Congress and 2 senators. That's
that
our
makes
Electoral
sense.
College vote. You know, we have 16
we
electoral.
You're educating me. Well, first off, congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's
That's
very
awesome.
exciting.
Well, and, so let's go. Before we get into that part, we'll come back and talk about November here in a minute. So here we are, though. We're wrapping up again. We have, right now we're recording this around midday on Monday, so we still have a few more days yet to go through qualifying and all. So again, did reveal something I did not know about Ms. Medina, so that's interesting. Good to hear that. I love a challenge election. I don't care what side you're on. I think every election should have a challenger. We have learned that lesson here in Floyd County before, where we had people run and get into a little bit of trouble maybe, and maybe they weren't the best person to run for that job after. Well, nothing, real bad, but still, I'd love to have contested elections here. So you think we're going to have some contested local elections? I know right now we're looking at least a few.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. I'm hoping we have more contested than uncontested elections.
Good.
This year on our ballots in November.
I think it makes for a better. Personally, I think it makes for a better election. It'll get you a bit more of a choice.
Well, and it's hard. I mean, as someone who works on candidate recruitment, right? It's hard in this when you're surrounded by all this national incivility. It's really hard to turn to somebody and go,
"Oh, I agree.
I know it looks really bad what's happening and how they're calling each other names and blah blah blah." But right now, I don't feel like that's happening here at these very local races. So
no, they're saving all that for the coronavirus. Trust me. We won't go there today. That's coming up later on this week. All right, so you're looking at some contested races coming up this November, which is great. We've got some very big elections coming up in May yet. We do have. Do you see any contested Democratic races in the May primary?
Yes, the U.S. Senate race.
Okay. I mean local ones first. We're gonna go into Senate next. So.
You never know what's gonna happen. I'm not.
You are skilled at this.
I am not expecting it.
Okay.
But you very seriously. I very often have had surprises on qualifying week. I've had people walk up that I've never seen before in my life, and they want to run for office. And
I love surprises.
And we welcome candidates. You don't have to have gotten the stamp of approval from anybody, but just want to do it.
Good. You got a couple of qualifications you got to meet. Yeah. Put your money down. You run. That is good. All right. So maybe not some contested Democratic stuff in the primary. We'll know for sure we'll have a pretty good ballot coming together for November when we have, it is party versus party in the November general election there. Let's move on to that general election, especially those U.S. Senate seats. I think Doug Collins qualified this morning to run for what we call, figuratively, the Isaacson seat, which has somewhat incumbent in there, the appointment of Kelly Loeffler by the governor. But also we have Mr. Perdue running for a new 6-year term as well. And the folks on the Democratic side of the aisle are licking their chops right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed.
Why is that?
Well, so let's look at them separately. So let's start with the one you started with. Okay. The Doug Collins, Kelly Loeffler are the ones getting the big attention, right? So that's a special election. Mm-hmm. It's not a typical election. They're not going to have a primary in May. We're going to have an election in November for that U.S. Senate seat, for that unexpired term, that everybody who qualifies, and they're not qualifying today, right? The qualifying hasn't been set for that election.
What did Doug Collins do today?
Or maybe they did qualify. I apologize if I'm wrong about that.
I know he had a press conference this morning. I could have sworn he said he's qualifying. But okay.
My apologies. I could be wrong on that. But whoever is going to run for that seat, they all run together in the November 3rd election. So some people call that a jungle, primary.
Oh,
so,
yes, yeah.
So you're definitely looks like you're going to have 2 Republicans. You may have more than 2 Republicans. Right now, we have 3 Democrats who've announced. One who is sort of the pick of the National Senatorial Campaign Committee folks on the Democratic side. That's Pastor Raphael Warnock. That's 1 seat, and that's going to be, not likely. It is not likely that on November 3rd, somebody's going to get 50% plus 1 vote in that race. So it would go to a runoff in January. Now let's go to the regular seat. A seat currently held by Senator Perdue. He's up for re-election. I don't know if anyone will qualify to run against him in the primary, but that's a regular election, right?
Sure.
Regular 6-year cycle. On May 19th, there'll be a primary on the Republican side. If anybody runs against him, he'd have to beat them. And then on the Democratic side, we have several candidates in the race there. Former Mayor of Columbus, Teresa Tomlinson, our Lieutenant Governor nominee from 18, Sarah Riggs-Amico. And then you also have John Ossoff, who many people remember from that special election where he lost to Karen Handel. So there may be other people who get in that race as well. We'll know by Friday. But that is a more regular election. So if the primary on May 19th doesn't have someone getting 50% plus 1 vote, then there'll be a runoff. Can't remember if it's June or July. July.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't write that date down. I think it is July, yes. So there'll be a runoff for that. And then the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee will face each other in November with, if there's a Libertarian candidate, also in that race.
Yeah,
So.
and we've seen that go to the runoff before. We all remember the Coverdale race and some other races too as well.
Yeah, Weich Fowler.
Well, exactly. So those races, this whole thing, again, you were saying earlier to kind of start us off here, how the White House, the road to the White House does go through Georgia. I mean, we are really that's when Georgia takes prime time.
I have been involved in campaigns for a very long time, and I have never seen the kind of interest in Georgia that I'm seeing now. Even back when Georgia was a Democratic state and it was very strongly contested, Bill Clinton won us twice, right? It's still, the resources that we're going to see this year are like nothing we have ever seen in this state. The Republicans are going to have to defend here. We have these 2 Senate seats that could very much change the balance of the U.S. Senate. And I think that Georgia is going to be in play for the presidential campaign. The DNC just put us on their battleground list, just added us last week, which means they're already putting in more resources. They started last year putting in field resources, training people on the ground to knock the doors, which I think is the most important resource. You can do all the TV ads you want, but I think the people talking to their neighbors is the strongest method of campaigning.
No, good point. So is this the Stephanie Abrams legacy from 2018? That's why we look at Georgia. I mean, that race was so close.
Stacey Abrams, yes.
What did I say, Stephanie? So, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah. So it was the how competitive the governor's race was.
I'm sorry. Stephanie Abrams is the Weather Channel. She's a University of Florida graduate. How would I confuse that? Anyway.
I don't know. So it has a lot to do with the amount of hard work that the party and led by Leader Abrams put together to make that race so competitive. It has a lot to do with the amount of voter suppression that was alleged, and in my mind, very much a part of what.
Is that anger still here?
Oh, that anger is very much here. And also, just look at it. The Republicans nationally really didn't come and play much here in that 18 election. They didn't put.
Good point.
The Republicans and the Democrats didn't put any money here in 16 or 14 or 12 or 10, right? Like the national people, the big money, the big super PAC money, right? There might have been a little super PAC mailing here or there or an ad here or there. But what you're going to see in November is like nothing we've ever seen. And it could be really interesting or it could be really off-putting, right? It could be just this shrill, loud voices telling you all kinds of different,
that never
up
happens.
is down and down is up kind of things. But the point is we will be able to see with well-resourced campaigns on both sides what we can do. And when this election is so close, I mean, we're talking 1.5 points.
Wow.
Without those national resources in here, Georgia is a lot more purple than people think it is, right? Look at us flipping a congressional seat in 2018, coming, 700 votes away from flipping another congressional seat in 2018. We expect to keep the seat we won last time, keep our incumbents, and also flip that 7th. We're going to be competitive places we haven't been competitive for. We're going to win back legislative state House seats, state Senate seats. It's going to be a really competitive November.
Well, I love seeing all you talk about the resources coming in, making this again. I love a competitive race. I mean, I think it's healthy. I just think it's healthier for the country. May the best candidate win. That's why I look at it. But I love to see that we're getting that kind of attention here. I love to see Georgia really being in prime time.
Well, if you think about it, we talk about it when we talk about attracting the film industry, right?
Yep.
In the film industry, we got everything here except for super huge mountains, right?
Yep.
Or a desert, right? But we got everything else here. So the same way when you look at our voters, we have just a beautiful mix of America. We're a microcosm of America right here. We have some urban core areas. We definitely have suburban areas. We have the rural small towns, like I like to describe Rome. We have the whole large amount of agriculture district, true rural part of the state. You got the mountain people who are like, leave us all alone, right? Like you truly have a little bit of everybody in the state. So I think it's a terrific state. And I'm going to be pushing from my seat on the DNC. I joined the DNC in not some small measure to try to get rid of the Iowa caucuses being first because of my
tell me that's happening.
Unhappy experience there. And what happened this year has sealed their fate. I can't imagine that they'll be first. And I'm going to push for Georgia to be in the mix of those first states. Again, the DNC can't decide that it will. It's up to our state elections folks decide when the state elections are going to be. But anyway, but that's what I'm going to push for because I think we're very representative of all of the country.
No, good point. I would love to see, as a journalist and as a resident, I would love to see us having, what's the word for it? More punch, more.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's not just that parochial. Oh, we're big and important, right? Like think of every demographic. We have.
No, I'll go big and important. I like that. I know.
We have a thriving Asian American population, Hispanic population. The energy we have at the port, right? Like the different layers of the economy. Yep. We've got technology hubs and agriculture and everything in between. Huge emphasis on small business and what it does for our state, right? Like, so every kind of way you would look at a state, we have a good mix here in Georgia.
Nope. Good point about that. Wendy Davis, I want to thank you very much for coming in here. Any final thoughts here, again, on any of the topics we covered?
Yes. So I want people to recognize their power as voters.
This is the little d Democrat.
This is the little d Democrat. This is about, I don't care if you're going to vote opposite my vote in every election. I want you voting. And you are making a decision whether you stay home or whether you go vote. Not voting is a decision, and not voting is putting your power on the shelf and letting somebody else have that power.
Amen to that.
These races, I think at every level, are going to be competitive like we've never seen. Your voice is important. Your voice is probably even going to be important in the presidential election. I think this presidential election is going to be thin, close.
I think you're right.
Nail biting,
well,
hair
it was
pulling.
Last time.
It was.
And people fail to recognize.
But again, everybody assumed Georgia was just going to be in the Republican column. It's a toss-up this year, and the whole nation, the Electoral College vote is a toss-up, and there's a lot to be seen. So make your voice heard. It's important in this election and all the local elections. Go all the way down your ballot, please. Please go all the way down your ballot and do your homework. Druck's always got great resources for you to see who's what, and League of Women Voters does a beautiful job with their voter guides. So educate yourself. And if you're just not sure, even if we don't agree politically, you can find me on Facebook, Wendy 4 Rome, right? It's my Facebook handle and my Twitter handle. And I'm always happy to answer questions and help people get resources to find out. My brother wanted to volunteer. My brother's never done anything other than vote in his life. he wanted to volunteer for a campaign this year. I helped him find
Good for you. Good for him.
A right-wing campaign that would match him down.
Your brother's right. Oh, that's what we got to do next time, Todd. How about that? Let's get y'all together, the siblings together.
No, please.
Come on, that'd be great. I love sibling rivalry.
No. So anyway, but I mean, I helped him find a campaign to volunteer.
What's that show called? PTI, kind of like a.
But anyway, please, check your registration. Make sure it's current. Make sure you know where your polling place is. And if you go to vote and somebody tries to turn you away, just stand there. Just stand there and say, I want to speak to a poll manager, and assert your authority that you know you're registered to vote. You've checked your voter registration. This is where you're supposed to vote. And by golly, you're going to give me a ballot. If they don't let you, ask for, what's it called?
Provisional ballot.
Provisional ballot.
Thank you.
Right? But make your voice heard. Don't let anybody
turn you. Get that vocabulary back a couple years ago.
That's right. Don't let anybody turn you away.
No, good point. Good point about the heavy vote. And I know some poll workers this year a little bit more energized about being vigilant for people who do exactly what you just said.
Oh, and the last thing, this new system, right? You're going to print out your ballot for you to look at it. Read your ballot. Read what printed out. If you don't agree that what printed out was what you touched on the screen, or if you changed your mind, they have to let you redo it.
Yep.
Okay, so
Robert Brady did a good job describing that.
Make sure you read it, and then when you put it into the scanner, I'd suggest you put it in upside down because it's still a secret ballot, right? So.
Good point. It'll scan both sides, right?
It scans both sides, but that's just what I suggest.
Must be that $20, 20 cents a sheet paper that's so special there. Well, all right, Wendy, thank you very much. Great job on that. A lot of topics here. We appreciate that. But it's fun, though. What a great week in politics here. What a great year in politics as well. Wendy, thanks for your time. Todd, thank you as well. Always well-produced, well-packaged here. Makes us all sound wonderful. We'll have continuing election coverage for you on Hometown Headlines, hometownheadlines.com, on the Hometown Podcast Network as well. We will get into candidate interviews coming up a little bit later down, closer to when we start voting for the May primary. We'll start those before early voting starts, so to make sure people have some information. Wendy, thank you, folks. Thank you for your time today. We're going to have another podcast later on this week, very important one dealing with the coronavirus. Please tune in for that. Well, more details available on that at hometownheadlines.com. John Druckenmiller saying thanks for your time. Have a great day in Northwest Georgia.